Greetings, visionaries. This is your host, the INFJ Visionary. And in our last broadcast, we kind of talked about dynamics, personal dynamics, and I thought it would be a good topic to expand on. Your internal energy. Now, again, I can't speak for everyone, but I do think that the way that we're wired, in our case, with the dominant function of introverted intuition, followed with the extroverted feeling, and then the introverted thinking, and lastly by the extroverted sensing, all of us have that in common. And if you think about it, that's like a dynamo, that's like an engine. And I think for INFJs, a good amount of our energy, obviously since we're introverts, comes from that internal dynamo. We're not fed as much by success in the external world, although certainly we crave it. I can tell you that. Because of that extroverted feeling component. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be complete. We wouldn't be a complete organism, and we wouldn't be able to be effective in the world at all. If you have energy problems, it could be for any number of reasons. Mostly, I think a lot of energy problems come from. This is not a diet channel, but I should point out that if you're eating a lot of sugar and bad food, when you're young you can get away with it, but I can tell you that it doesn't agree with us older dragons, and we have to really dial it back. And for years, when I heard about the evils of sugar, I just thought, whatever, it's natural, go away. But what it does, and again, I know it's an INFJ channel, so I'll make it brief. But what it does, and we're all humans, though. We have all that in common, and what you're putting in your body is probably the number one thing you have control over, and that is, you want to keep it on clean, whole foods. You want to avoid processed sugar. You can eat fruit and stuff. I certainly do. And obviously, I'm a big believer in eating other critters because I'm a dragon, so there's that. But even if you're a vegetarian, you can do all right in this world. Eat a lot of good, clean fats and vegetable proteins, and avoid all the junk in the center of the store. So that's number one, and that just has to be stated. But then, more in line with the channel, we can talk about your internal psychology. So the way to have access to infinite amounts of energy is to make sure that you have a true organic flow of all the different elements that constitute your persona, right? And as we know, we have a framework as INFJs all in common for the priorities that we place upon different aspects of our cognition. I just outlined them a minute ago. And the driving one, of course, is the introverted intuition. And like I said in our last broadcast, we had an excellent insight come up in the comments about introverted intuition. I haven't heard anyone really state this so clearly, and that is that it's very easy to use and very hard to describe, and that is the case. Even for us INFJs, where it's our primary function, I think so often when we turn our minds to what it is, we get caught up in feelings, we get caught up in sensations and intuitions, and it's not always accessible as language, especially to people that may not be introverted intuitives. They're just going to think whatever, or they may have some interest, and some types do. And we pointed out those types before. It's the ENTP, the INTP, the ENFP, and the INFP. All of those types have a certain resonance with our introverted intuition, and mostly through the antenna of their extroverted intuition. Of course, they're parsing us in all these different ways, and none of them, I think, really understand what it means to be an introverted intuitive. And it takes a while, even if you're an INFJ, to understand what it means to be an introverted intuitive and what it means for that to be driving your life. And so getting back to the energy equation, you need to make sure that you're not busy disguising yourself too deeply in the world. The world has its place. It's like a play that you're writing, and you are the author. You should be the author. And if you feel that your life has gotten away from you and you don't like the play that you're living in, you should take steps to change that. And it might be incremental. In fact, I heard a great comment today, and this was in regards to AI music, and this guy was saying that someone could defend their creation of AI music by saying, well, it would take me 10 years to learn how to be good at music. And the guy who was speaking in the videos, he made an excellent point. He's like, well, 10 years, why don't you start today? Great insight. That would apply to anything you want to do. And doing something is another way to have access to infinite energy. If you're excited about your life and the things you're making or the things you're creating, and those don't have to be objects in the physical world. We are quite adept at working in areas like, believe it or not, management. I don't think we're that well designed for management, to be honest, because there's a lot of stress there, and there's a lot of other types that will handle it more natively. But having been a manager in the past, I can say honestly that it's very creative, and if you approach it from the right viewpoint, it's not draining. Okay, so what is draining, of course, is the things that put us into a full-time extroverted posture. That, of course, is going to drain your energy. It's not going to feed it. And that's what, it gets back to what I was saying, 5 minutes ago here. As introverts, we will get energy from our own plans, our own actions. But those plans and actions need to take place in the external world. It's not enough to just sit in your bedroom and dream about doing things. You need to get involved with something, and I'll be honest with you, it doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters in this life is how you're living it. The actual mechanics are, they're flexible. You could be a great chef, you could be a great writer, a great artist, you could be a great mother or father, right? A philosopher, a mechanic. I don't know if mechanic's a great task for INFJs, and this gets to like that bottom function that we don't talk about too much, which is the extroverted sensing. Now, you could have really, really weak extroverted sensing or less weak extroverted sensing. Either way, it's going to be your weakest function. That's a definition of an INFJ right there, which means it's a bit of a blind spot for us. Now, the proper use of it will actually feed energy to us from the external world, and that is by it works in synchronicity with our introverted intuition, in that it feeds that introverted intuition. But if you remember that the real nature of reality and how we perceive it is 90% blocking things out, then you can appreciate that the things that you choose to have some awareness of in the external world, that is very much going to be directed by your internal world and the things you value. Those are the things you'll notice. And a lot of your friends and family may give you a hard time because of all the things you don't notice that everyone else just takes for granted. And the reason for that is because we have to parse things in a certain way as INFJs. It's just how we're designed. And don't abuse it. If you put yourself in a position where you're forced to be in that, like say getting a job in an amusement park or something like that, where you're constantly overstimulated, that's going to drain you. You're going to be having a real energy problem in your life until you change that up. Anyway, that's some thoughts about dynamicism, energy, and maybe we'll get into, I didn't get much into drive, but we can talk about that at another time. Anyway, see you in a couple days, INFJs. Keep on keeping on.